Welcome into Tennessee Titans today. I am Tom Downey here for Chat Sports, breaking down the latest rumors around your Tennessee Titans. And we're going to begin with some interesting comments about some potential wide receiver moves that have been speculated and made by the organization to an extent. FanSided has said Tennessee should sign a receiver, and then Mike Keith, the voice of the Titans, was asked about adding one. He said it was very possible Tennessee pursues that route. Now, the Titans are a little bit tight as we sit right now in salary cap space. They've got about $4.94 million, so not a ton of funds to work with at this particular time. But here is what Mike Keith had to say. There are still some veterans floating around, and don't be shocked if the Titans nab a veteran in the next few weeks with who is out there. Now, the Titans once again have flexibility to be able to bounce around and potentially do some things. And as we've said before on the show, I would look at the wide receiver market as well. I would rather have too many proven receivers than not enough proven guys. And with the way this team is set up right now, even though they're going to run the football a ton, and I am not saying don't feed King Henry, you will have to throw it to win football games in the modern day NFL, or at least win them consistently in the NFL. And right now, I don't know if Tennessee can quite do that at the same level. I like Robert Woods. I think Traylon Brooks is going to be a good football player for a long time in this league. At minimum, he's going to be a good receiver too, slot guy early on. I don't mean to shade Nick Westbrook-Akina, but I don't love him as receiver 3. I think long-term, Kyle Phillips could be their slot receiver. But you're also banking on a guy who didn't make your roster last year to begin it in Dez Fitzpatrick, a 6th-round, probably more core special teamer in Ray C. McMath, and then a 5th-round slot only in Kyle Phillips. This receiving core is not great. It's not a disaster, but it's not good enough for a team that aspires to win a title this year. So we're going to get to some of the options that FanSided laid out in a second. But should the Titans go sign another veteran receiver? Y for yes or N for no? This question is the pinned comments on today's video. So if the ad break comes here on YouTube, go take advantage of it. Head down there and sound off if the Titans should add a receiver. Y or N? The 3 names that FanSided has pitched: Odell Beckham, Will Fuller, and Jarvis Landry. We'll spend time on each of them, some of the pros and cons, beginning with a name I think I mentioned yesterday or a day ago, something on the show, Will Fuller, who, as producer Jeremy says, has, what was it, hamstrings made of cotton candy? That's your line? Yeah, that's producer Chugs for you. It's not wrong. Barely played at all in 2021 with some uncertainty about just off the field. He didn't seem to be quite right for whatever reason. 2020, he played great and then got himself suspended for PED usage, allegedly with the same trainer that DeAndre Hopkins was using. That's a red flag moving forward for anyone who trains with him. When he's out there, speedy, vertical threat with big playability. Problem is, not out there consistently. He always misses time, be it due to suspension, whatever was going on this year, and injury as well. He has never played a full 16 or 17 now game season at this stage in his NFL career. I doubt he will. But if you get him for 12 games and he's cheap, that still carries value. Next up is Odell Beckham, who needs no introduction. Beckham was great his first couple years, regressed with the Giants and the Browns, and then began to rehab his stock, especially in the postseason with the LA Rams. Unfortunately, tore his ACL. He will not be ready in time for Week 1, I don't think. But for Tennessee, that might be okay. You can bring him along slower and have him for when it matters, your playoff push, because with your run game-focused offense, you could probably survive with the receiving core you have and then ramp things up as the postseason gets going, although I wonder if he just goes back to the Rams. Then there's Jarvis Landry, who is a slot only, who allegedly wanted $20 million per year, which is, it's so ridiculous. I feel like it can't be true, but that was the report out there. He ain't even worth half of that figure. That's an obscene sum to expect to pay a slot-only receiver who clearly, as you can tell with the numbers, has regressed each of the past 3 years. But if you want a slot, he is one of the better ones still out there. So pick a receiver for me. Who would you sign of these 3? I'll make you pick one and only one. If you want to rank them, that's fine too, because I'm going to rank them in a second. WF for Will Fuller, OBJ for Odell Beckham, or JL for Jarvis Landry. I myself would rank them Odell Beckham, Will Fuller, big gap, Jarvis Landry. I don't need a slot-only receiver. I think you should play Treylon Burks in the slot at least some in year one, and Kyle Phillips is a slot-only receiver as well. So I don't want Landry. Not the right fit. Fuller as your vertical threat, awesome, and OBJ is the best one on that list. So Fuller or Beckham, I would be totally down for if I ran the Titans. If you want to bet on Tennessee or bet on the NBA or any sporting event, do it with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Head over to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code CHAT1125. I kind of messed it up there because I had a pen in my hand. 125 is the answer there. I had to do it right that time. CHAT125 for a 125% deposit bonus. When you put down at least $100, BetUS, they're just going to give you an extra 125. They'll match up to 600. So you put down $100, boom, extra free money to bet with that. Just in case if you're a bad bettor like producer Jeremy, you got plenty of extra money left over to right some of your losses there. You can bet on Tennessee to win the AFC South. They are not the betting favorite. The Colts have surpassed them this offseason. They are minus 110. Tennessee plus 125. It's a lot better bet than the Jags and Texans because those teams are terrible. So I actually like Tennessee's value there as the non-betting favorite. You can fade them or bet on them at chatsports.com/bet. Just remember to use promo code CHAT125 for that deposit bonus. Some news. Greg Mabin is back again. This is the third different, or he's now had, I should say, this is technically his fourth move, 3 different stints with Tennessee since 2002. Or 2020, excuse me. He's not that old. Gets signed and released, signed and released, signed and released. Now he's back post-draft. I will say that, of course, there is no guarantee that Mabin ends up making the roster. And to be blunt, he's probably a bit unlikely to actually make it with all the investments this team has made at corner, but this gives them a player that is familiar in the system and is able to make a nice impact from that standpoint there. Mabin didn't do that much last year as a member of the organization, just had a couple plays on the football. It's whatever. His career has not been that impactful. One pass break. He's got good size, 6'2", 195, maybe hoping for some more special teams role in the event he does make the roster, but I just look at the numbers game, barring injuries, which of course do happen. Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley, Elijah Molden, Roger McCreary are roster locks for this organization. And then you've got guys like Buster Skrine, Chris Jackson, who was on your team last year. You've got other corners in Shaheem Carter who could play some nickel for you. Greg Mabin is now back. It's just the numbers game is not quite right, at least for me. Now, do you want free Titans videos? Kind of seems like a pretty good deal. Yeah, free always will be here at Titans Today. All you have to do is hit that big red button and subscribe. Then you'll get videos sent to your phone or laptop or wherever pretty much every single day. If you haven't already, help us grow the channel here so we can do more Titans videos by subscribing right now. How about a cut candidate rumor? That is Buster Skrine. Bleacher Report named one player each team should cut, and they did briefly mention Bud Dupree, which it doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm going to just mention it and move on. Skrine, however, does make some sense. The Tennessee Titans, better than most or more than most teams, have really good corner depth. They're pretty deep right now. I'll make note on the savings money-wise here, then we'll come back to this conversation. They did guarantee a surprisingly high amount of his one-year deal. They save under $500,000 if Skrine is cut. The dead money they leave, and that is what's basically add up the cap savings, the dead money for the total contract there, just over $600,000. So you're not saving that much, but you are saving a little bit. So we'll come back to Skrine and why I think he's not that good. But I want you to name a player who you think the Tennessee Titans should cut. What player, big name or little name, are you done with, you don't want anymore? Sound off for me in the comments section. Skrine had an interception last year, 3 pass breakups, playing for both the Niners and the Titans. His size is indicative of an equal, and he's played outside and inside. He, across his NFL career, I've always been confused why Buster Skrine gets so many chances. He's not that good. His 2020 coverage numbers, these are all per Pro Football Reference. He's a nickel corner, so you allow a higher completion percentage. This is terrible. I'm sorry. 5 touchdowns allowed, 3 pass breakups, 507 yards, 78.1% completion rate. He wasn't even a full-time starter for them. He's not that good. And at this roster, or the depth chart, I think Christian Fulton's way better. Caleb Farley, Elijah Moore. Now drafted Roger McCreary, who I was a bit surprised he had another corner. You've got Chris Jackson, I think, is just as good, if not better, than Buster Skrine. And maybe Shaheem Carter emerges as a nickel corner option for you. So for right now, Skrine just screams of veteran insurance. In case there are injuries, here's our guy. If there aren't injuries, and this is probably more of a roster cut-down move, I would have no qualms about moving on from Buster Skrine and rolling with my promising, talented, young cornerback room.